Hi, sisters and brothers. We're back for another, who knows, short, long, whatever. I never know anymore. But we know on this channel what we've been looking at. We've been discovering the deeper truth that's been hid in the Bible for thousands of years. And it really does get exciting when you're digging so deep that it's all just lining right up. So the succession that we've been following lately, really, especially the last 2 days, I'll say, I've been in this study. I've broken these first four down as really the buildup in the kingdom, which was Nimrod, King Solomon, Sennacherib, and Nebuchadnezzar. So that is to say, it was them who really constructed the whole idea. And what we mean is with Nimrod, it was at first it was this body image of the female, we're going to say. The male may have been there, but it was the focus with Nimrod was to build up the Tower of Babel. And we speculated, okay, that that was a representation of the female form with a male head. And it does tend to follow that sequence. And I may have to pause my video, okay, and pick it up later in the day if I get interrupted. But next is follow right on his trail is King Solomon. And we saw what King Solomon did. And I did have something a little reversed with King Solomon. I had said that the money came to him from the golden statue. So I had that totally wrong. The money came from King Solomon's 666 talents that he received year after year after year as payment from the nations, right? That were paying him, oh, what do they call it? Tribute, more or less. So they were like a conquered nations, these were that were paying tribute to King Solomon and his kingdom. So that came to him in the form of 666 talents. Well, a talent is equal to 75 pounds of gold. So 666 talents times 75 pounds of gold, you're going to come up with a grand total of 49,950 pounds of gold a year that he got in tribute from the surrounding, nations that he had, I guess, conquered that the kingdom. But it's interesting that we get King Solomon in this group here, and they're all Babylonians. So you get Nimrod, you get King Solomon, you get Sennacherib, then you get Nebuchadnezzar, who put the golden idol of a man. So with Nimrod, like we speculate, the Tower of Babel was probably in the form of a woman with a male head. And in this tower area, the real tower where your argument is found, go watch the last video on Nimrod that we discovered what this really meant. And they were attempting to confuse her speech. That's what they were really trying to do. And they succeeded through these four kings, really. So Nimrod represented the Tower of Babel. King Solomon was about division. And so we get the division of the pleasant land, the daughters, the women. They were really starting to, what's the word I'm looking for here? They were really starting to stumble over their words, and we're going to point you to a reference when we get to it. But the division was the key of David, and then we get the key of Solomon, though the key of Solomon is never mentioned. It's mentioned in the real world, and the real world is governed by that key, right? Once we understood that there was a great division happening, and the men were trying to divide the women, divide their argument, confound their speech, and we get them actually stumbling, beginning to stumble here as we get a dividing coming in between actually the women and their children. Their sons was part of these two groups, right, that they were dividing, obviously. And so with King Solomon, we find this division happening. So Nimrod was the Tower of Babel. With King Solomon, it was the division. So next is Sennacherib. Sennacherib, what? He destroys her holy places, her high places. He goes up to destroy her high places. Any remembrance of her, he wanted to take out of the knowledge of the women, right? So we see him approaching to her that sat between these so-called cherubim, which weren't cherubim. You have to go back and watch some of the other videos to know what we ascertained it to mean. So he went up, and his job was to cut her holy places down out of the land so that there was absolutely no remembrance of her as a divine being like him, right? So we see that there is so a lineage of wicked families that continue to carry this line through the sons, is what we see. Of course, because daughters are born into this family, they also have this knowledge. They did have until they lost it, because God promised them, once you do this, I promise you, you're even going to fall into your own snare, not going to be able to get out of it. Oh man, I didn't bring my Bible again. But there's a verse in Isaiah 46. They fall into their own snare and they forget what they did, is the idea there. And even they can't get themselves out of the mess that they created. And she told him, she said, I promise you, you won't be able to get yourself out of this mess without me to show you how. And so we get Nimrod, we get King Solomon, we get Sennacherib, who went up to her high places and says, I tore them down out of the land. He threatens her, he told her that. And we see one good king. We also have some bad things we could say about this king. But one good thing that King Hezekiah did was he went up to her and he petitioned her to save his kingdom. He said, please save me from Sennacherib. And in that petitioning, she says, fine, I will. But Sennacherib mocks the king and says, you're going up to this Lord to ask for her help when you helped tear her representations down out of the land, and now you're putting faith in that she can rescue you? Ha! He laughs. But she does. She does. Because Hezekiah was humble enough to go to her and ask for her help. It took that humbleness. And Hezekiah, if nothing else, and Isaiah, if we're to believe what they did was true, they were humble enough to go and approach her and ask for her help. And so she gave it. Sennacherib did not take Hezekiah as a captive or his nation. Then we move to Nebuchadnezzar. So this is what I had wrong. And I have a lot more information, so I can tell you we're not probably not gonna get to it because I will be interrupted. So then we go to Nebuchadnezzar, and what is his big claim to fame? Okay? He built that gold statue, and Daniel too, didn't he? He had all these dreams, right? And then Daniel interpreted these dreams. But what did he build? What did he create that idol, that male idol out of? It had to have been going back to that 666 talents of gold that Solomon received year after year after year as tribute from these nations that he had took in captivity or whatever. I haven't really looked into it too much. But they were paying tribute to his kingdom, all right? And so that was 666. That number becomes very important because they state it in Revelation, says, he that is wise will understand 666. Well, none of them do. It wasn't he that is wise, it's she that is wise. It's wisdom herself. And wisdom says, I'm not going to use that made up idol that you got standing. She says, this is where? Oh, I think she states it in Isaiah 48. I'm not 100% sure, but we have done a video on that. She says, I'm not going to use the mouth of your idol, because what can your idol speak and say of? Nothing. But she says, I have spoken these things from the beginning, and I will show them to you again. And it is not the honor of kings to break down the mysteries of the Bible. It is the honor of her daughters to do that. And it is an honor to do it. She places her voice with us, through us, daughters. So what does he do? He creates the male idol, doesn't he? That's been standing for over 2,000 years. Yeah. So they did it in 4 parts here. We get this 4-part idea. First, the Tower of Babel, the division between the women. They destroy her high places, right, of worship. And then they create a male idol. Isn't that funny? Ha, not so funny, is it, when it becomes a yoke on your neck? But it's funny how it's progressed and that we can follow it in this exact order. So I'm left because Nimrod was a Babylonian. Obviously, he was the father of the Babylonian kingdom. He was the one that was working to build it and put it in play. So he was really the first Babylonian, you could say, almost, in many senses. King Solomon isn't said to be Babylonian, yet there he is sitting. There he is sitting. It's weird, isn't it? So we got Nimrod, really, a Babylonian. We got King Solomon, who's not said to be a Babylonian. We got Sennacherib, who was a Chaldean or Babylonian. That was the kingdom he was from. Then we got Nebuchadnezzar, another Babylonian or Chaldean. What is King Solomon doing there? His role was pivotal. And the number 666 is pointing back to him for a reason, right? That's the one that we get to point at and go, why are you on their side when you were supposed to be on our side? Why? Why are you going against us? We're your people. You're of us, supposedly, and yet you're with the Chaldeans, you're with the Babylonians, helping them to build this kingdom up. So I question, was he really? Or was he a Chaldean all along, a Babylonian all along? Okay, so what else did I want to say here? So we know that he received this gold. We know that 6 times 6 times 6 means 216 in your tally. That's important too, because when you go back to 216, Strong's Hebrew 216, in your Bible, in your concordance, it's going to say light and it's going to be feminine. So what does that tell you? It tells you he's changing the light from one of light, which was the key of David, to one of darkness, which was the key of Solomon, his own key, which worshipped Moloch, a king, as God. God says, you didn't want me. We identified God as the daughters inside the nation of Israel, which is why we get the kings once again saying in Isaiah 83, was it Isaiah 83? No, there's no 83 in Isaiah. It's only 66. That's an important number, 6, because that was the size of the idol that Nimrod, it was 6 by 6, not feet, but whatever dimensions they use there, cubits, and then something else. Well, they have to keep that 6 in play. They have to keep that number, which is why the Holy Bible is 66 books, right? They got to keep that number in play. They do, because it is the number of a man, an imperfect man. They did not want God. They wanted a man. And we know that they set out in Psalm 83, I'll get it, says, let us cut them off from being a nation. That was the female, the daughters inside the nation of Israel, from really becoming this true nation of daughters, right? That knew the law of their mother and taught it to their hosts out of their wombs, and not his lying law of a man as God and a yoke on their neck. So then we get the king saying with her law, which was a daughter of Zion, in Psalm 2, the king said, let us cut their cords asunder. Cord is a representation of the law, right? And they didn't like being in bondage to this righteous law, because then they couldn't run around. They couldn't be, materialistic in the way that they want it to be. They couldn't have all the women that they wanted. They couldn't have all the wars and fightings, because they weren't supposed to do any of these things. Those weren't her law. But he wanted to make this a foundation of not her law, which is then fed through the harlot spirit, right? Which is actually his law on her neck, so that they could do and be whatever they wanted to be and do, which was against her. And we studied those in the Book of Wisdom. We know that they were not with her, and we know that she was not with them, because they stated she is not for our turn. She's not. She's not one of us. She says, you think I'm a man just like you. I'm not a man. I'm a woman. I'm not a man. I'm not made in your image. I'm made in my mother, the creator's image, who created all things, not Nebuchadnezzar. So we can look at Nebuchadnezzar and what he did. So King Solomon was so a Babylonian, I speculate. He certainly was in doctrine, right? He changed the light of the daughters of Zion, and he changed the portion in the midst. That's called the flock of Bozrah, in the midst, when he handed over her houses that was rightfully theirs to govern through these houses. And he handed them over to all the wives, or the wife, Pharaoh's daughter in particular. He brings her up. So we understood what he was up to and what he was doing, and that they were tearing these righteous daughters' houses down. We know that's what that's what Jeroboam came against King Solomon about, his mother's house, who was a widow woman. And what did King Solomon do? He bought him off with power. He bought him off with power. So we've discussed all of this. For anybody who's been here all along, you already know all about Jeroboam. You know about Sennacherib. You know about Nebuchadnezzar, and you know about Nimrod now. So Daniel 6:7. When the kingdom gets cut away from Nebuchadnezzar, it's a big allegorical context of what man has become in our current world. And he has so become a beast because, watch what they all do. All the Christian males do it. Especially, we don't hardly want to bring in the Islamists because they hate women so bad. It's so obvious how much they hate women. I mean, their Sharia law is such a heavy yoke on her neck. It shows who the real weakling is. Males, and they can't even begin to carry the laws on their neck that she has to carry. It's crazy. The weight they've placed on her and then call her weak. It's easy to look strong when you've weighed somebody down with thousands of pounds that you can't carry. Yeah, let's see how strong you really are. Let's see how strong the daughters really are when you take that weight off of their neck, but you won't do it. You know why? Because you're a coward. You're really a weakling. That's what you really are. And nobody wants to say that to their heads. Nobody. And the men over here, oh, they've taken some of the burden off. But you know what? All through my youth, my teens, my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s, for a part of it anyway, I heard, man is my head. Man is my head, and women shouldn't be trying to act like men. We're not. We're not trying to act like men. We're trying to have our rights restored to us that came from the original creator, not man, who is the one telling us that we do not have equal rights. So, weak. Very weak. At least, as one of them said, the men here in the West is willing to have this discussion. They're willing to talk about it. They are. There's a willingness there. Because they see it. Don't tell me some of them don't see it. They do. Or we wouldn't be having the discussion. So those proud and boastful Islamist men who thinks they're all that in a bag of chips, who keeps their faces covered. Because, yeah, they're so all that. They're so strong, they got guns in their hands. They might as well have their arms up, kissing them and pointing to the heavens. That's might as well be what they're doing. They're weaklings. When they got to yoke her with something that they can't carry themselves, baby, that's weak. Daniel 6:7. What gets Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom cut away from him? Daniel 6:7. All the presidents. No, that's the wrong verse. Let me see. Right here. Daniel 4:17. I'm going back to that in a minute. Because this does so prove the men. No, let's do it right now. It's proven that the men's idea was to remove the law from the living God on earth, which we identified as the key of David, also called the camp of Mahanaim, or the presence of God on earth. And that is identified as the daughters inside the nation of Israel, or the daughter of Zion, as she's often called. Even daughter Israel, we see the supplanter, Jacob, wrestling her for her name. He wrestles the presence of God for her name, and she gives it to him only after she hamstrings him as a threat. I'm coming back to take you out because you are my enemy. You went after my name, my sovereignty you went after. And that's exactly what Jacob's name means, supplanter. He overthrew her as the sovereign and took possession of her house, of her womb, by putting a law on her neck that he had no right to do. Now, okay, so we know it to be true because in Daniel 6:7 we get King Darius doing this. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute. There was actually nothing royal about this. This was man-made. This was Beelzebub, Baal, sinner. Baal, a name for your husband. Beelzebub's another name for Satan, the accuser. And the accuser was the first man in the garden. So we've traced it all back. We also know what the mystery of lawlessness is. He yoked her. The mystery of lawlessness is God don't yoke God's children. God loves all the children the same. But you know what man did? Oh, you women are less and weaker than us, and we're going to yoke and yoke and yoke and put on you till you can't hardly move. And that's just what they did. But hey, look at them. So consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god, or man, I'm going to suggest to you that because it is a man writing the decree, that it really should be woman here, because it's obviously a man writing the statutes and decree. All of these were men at this time. Presidents, governors, princes, counselors, captains, they all consulted together. These were all males doing this. There was not females here. These were all males by this time. All right? They were ridding the world of the knowledge of the holy ones of God, or the daughters of Zion, the key of David, the camp of Mahanaim. They're also called the lilies of the covenant, the presence of God identified on earth. We also get Job supporting us in this idea, going, I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? For what portion of God is there from above? She came from above to give you the law of God. She was the ruling sovereign, should have been the foundation stone put in place, but she was rejected for a harlot. So that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god, they might as well say female, goddess, any god, or the camp of Mahanaim, or any presence of God, which would have been the daughters, or man, no, woman. We can say men because she had sons who were standing on her behalf. So we get Elijah being one of these sons. We saw what he battled against. What did he battle against? Baal. And who was Baal in covenant with? Well, at this time we had this split, didn't we? We had a split going on. It was happening. It was always happening from the beginning, from Nimrod's time straight through King Solomon, and it continued, right? We get the daughters actually staggering. We get them staggering over each other. And the idea is that she began to stagger over her argument, over what it was she knew to be true. They had really, really muddied her waters that bad. And so, what was I talking about? So we have Elijah. We also get men like Gideon, and they fought against Baal consistently. Any man that is considered good and righteous, he's constantly fighting against the image of Baal, or Beelzebub in the New Testament, which is another name for your husband Satan. Adam, the first man, and also the one that accused her to steal the host out of her womb. And we see this all happening with Nimrod. We also go back. I'm gonna look deeper into Abraham, and there's a reason why I need to do that, and we'll get into that maybe if I'm able to keep this without having to shut it off. I'll get to the explanation. So they weren't to listen to any god, any other god, or any other man or woman. Um, already being instructed, but okay, for 30 days, they weren't allowed to do, save of thee, O king. So they could only go to the king, right? For the decrees and the statutes and the law. He shall be cast into the dens of the lion. I'm not so sure she's weren't there either. But Daniel appears to possibly be one that was standing even at this time for the righteous Lord. So we get the revealer of truth. We see Daniel going to the revealer of truth, which we linked Mara. And forgive me, my name is Naomi. Okay, I'm a different Naomi. I'm not that Naomi. So they link the name Mara. She says, call me not Naomi, call me Mar. Bitterness, right? It's interesting that the same word is then translated, and they do link together. I just haven't done it. Mar, the Lord who is the revealer of all secrets, there in the book of Daniel, that Daniel goes to and does have the dream of what all of this means, that we're just going to jump into it right now. Daniel 4, and why the kingdom gets cut away from the king Nebuchadnezzar, who forgets. He himself forgets why he ends up in the predicament that he ends up in. And yet these dreams he had, then they were prophesied through Daniel, who was told by Mar, the Lord, who is the revealer of all secrets, revealed this truth to Daniel, and Daniel went and told it to the king. When the king heard it, Daniel, being the only one who could tell him the meaning of his dreams, he goes, truly your Lord is the Lord of all, is the true Lord, right? And yet in the same chapter later on, the kingdom is ripped away from him, and he acts like he totally forgets this whole part. So Daniel 4, we'll go to 17. This matter is by decree of the watchers. What's watchers here? What's a word for watchers? When you go in and you look it up, it means to be awake. To be awake for one, to be aware. So there's some idea that when we come in here, some of us may be chosen for different things to do. They're able to put a forgetful spell on us, mess with our genetic material. I don't know what it is, but we are to be wakeful. We are to be the watchers. We are to awaken, right? So that's the watchers here that we're looking at. And a word for that will take us back to the word you are, or you're, which is also the same location that Abraham comes out from in Chaldea. That's interesting, isn't it? So, I don't know. There's a lot going on there. I haven't looked deep enough into it. So, this matter is by decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High, which is wisdom, our mother, ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomever she will, and setteth up over it the basest, that means the humblest of people. She's not going to pick you if you're not humble. For all that the Christian males talk about being humble, 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 and teach us women that we need to be humble and shut our mouths and let him talk and be king and God, he's not very humble at all, is he? But she will decide, it says, who the kingdom goes to. She will setteth up over it the basest and humblest of people. I did not write that verse down. Yes, I did. Okay. So what did he do? What did King Nebuchadnezzar do in Daniel 4, verse 30? This is what got the kingdom cut away from him. And men need to look at this and really examine it. And the harlot women, and I'm going to call them harlots, who are the Jezebels in the land, building a male up, their hubby up, bridegroom out, and man, I see them by the dozens on YouTube doing it yet today. No wisdom, no wisdom. Tear their own house down. Tear their own house down and build that one up. You ask for what you get. You ask for the head to fall down on you. You ask for it. You're the ones bringing it on. You're the ones causing it. So, because you refuse, you're proud and boastful just like him. You refuse to go in and open your eyes and listen with your ears and try to understand that you are wrong. And I guess that's what it is. We none want to hear we're wrong. We're all right because he's right and you're just a lowlife woman and you're wrong. Well, thy wisdom, harlot, it has perverted you. You've become his harlot. You're a pervert, just like him. So, what did King Nebuchadnezzar do to have the kingdom ripped away from him? This is what he did. Daniel 4:30. The king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built by the house of the kingdom, for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty. Bing! There's the gold idol. Man's majesty and glory all for him. Still not getting it? You know, the Antichrist isn't 2,000 years old, is he? Jesus is. Okay, so I gotta pause this now. But Jesus is, isn't he? Yeah, they have built on the Antichrist for a very long time. Okay, so I am back. So we were saying Jesus isn't the Antichrist, and yet we all know of this idea of an Antichrist. And who's been shaped for the last 2,000 years to receive him in the temple of man? Who says, even as Jesus is head of the church, so too is man head of the woman? No, he ain't. That takes you back to the book of Esther. That's a lie, crafted by man. We've already identified Jesus as the feet of the idol, that the stone cut out without hands, representing the spirit, smashes and bring the idol of this God, made up God, that was created by these first four men in succession: Nimrod, King Solomon, Sennacherib, Nebuchadnezzar. We see them tearing her down and putting in place a male idol for worship and stealing the host out of her womb. We've already understood how they went about doing all this. This explains why King Solomon had 700 wives, 200 concubines. He was creating the nations um, that he needed that would worship this made up male idol God as male and creator of all things, and that he's perfect in everything that he does. And he was a liar from the beginning, an accuser. And that's also, I realized, the clouds that was hiding Jesus in the New Testament. It says, when why the Christians believe in a rapture, it's a mock at the woman. Really, that word rapture, and rapture, it's a mock at her. It is playing his harlot. He's raptured out of sight. He's took out of sight, and it says the clouds hide him, is what the verse says. I would pull it up, but I don't dare to. Um, but it says the clouds hiding. Well, we realize and recognize that the numbers in Hebrew, original Hebrew, around the word cloud takes you to the word nations. So Jesus is actually being hid by the nations, and he's being hid by worship. He's being protected by their worship towards him, towards the bridegroom as husband, Lord, and master of all things. And he's being protected by the nations that were actually developed by Nimrod, King Solomon, Sennacherib, Nebuchadnezzar, that would eventually over time flip and bow and worship a man to a king, and worship a king as Lord and God and creator of all things, when it says you denied your creator in the days of your youth. Well, the creator you denied is the one that gave life to you, and that is no male. And if you want to understand more, then you'll have to watch some of the other videos, because I really can't go into all that detail. But so this is where we get the idea that he is also this verse that we just looked at. Okay, sorry, I'm losing track here because I had to stop the video. But the last thing I read was Daniel 4:30. So the king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I, Babylon, this is Nebuchadnezzar, this is not Nimrod, that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty. So this could be why it's believed that he is a reincarnation of Nimrod. He says, look at all that I, I have made of this great Babylon, of this house that I made with my might and power for my majesty to be worshipped. He was looking for worship, right? So that could be why we understood in the video before the last one, why the Jews or why the Hebrews, whatever you want to call them today, believe that Nebuchadnezzar was in fact a reincarnation of Nimrod. So we looked at that. So, but then it states, and this is the reason why he gets the decree made by the holy ones, who are your hierarchy of angels. So they don't believe that women have power yet. The watchers here seems to be females who have awakened, yes, awakened out of a slumber. And we're going to examine some words here, one of them being resurrection. So Daniel 4:17, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High, which is wisdom, that's who we've identified the Most High as, ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it, or to mankind, humankind, and giveth it to whomever she will, and setteth up over it the basest of people, the humblest of people. So Strong's Hebrew word for watchers is ir, which led me to you are, eventually. So root of UWR, a watcher, an angel as a guardian, a watcher. Word origin is Aramaic, from a root corresponding to your or you are. It means waking, waking, slowly waking up, or wakeful one. You're finally awake. So these are your watchers who are decreeing it. We are also told that she left behind her rear guard when the glory left. When the Queen Glory left, she left her rear guard here, but she left her hidden, and we find her hidden in daughters like Esther, who then are taught to bow to a king. And she's taught by a man, Mordecai, whose name means follower of Marduk, and Marduk is a name for Baal, your husband. So he was a follower of this doctrine, is what his name is telling and indicating to you. He taught his little niece, whatever she was, how to bow to a king. So then we get Esther's name meaning, in some sense, hidden ones. So it's also the holy ones, which is also the idea of the rear guard left behind, that at the right and appointed time, she will stand up. That's going to take us to the word resurrection. Okay. So the resurrection, and I am going to do, hopefully, I don't know for sure, a future study. It depends on what way the Spirit leads me, really. On Genesis 11, or at least the idea that Abraham came up out of the land of right? And I do have it pulled out. I think it means fire or light. So I don't know. You know, it was said to be part of the Chaldean kingdom, the Babylonian kingdom. But was she there? And so, we get a light there. Did they bring out a light? Was that Abraham? Were they looking to dim her light? So those are all questions that I'm looking for the answers, and that means studying, all that Abraham did and the kingdom of Babylon and this little location here, which takes us to this word here, really watchful and wakeful ones. And that those, we use the number 7, we use it because it's there. We use it, some of us can get caught up. Well, I'm number 1, you're number 7. And I don't think that's so important. I think our focus has to absolutely be on the truth. God's already got us marked out for whatever purpose, and we're going to fulfill them or we're not going to fulfill them. But it should never be about our positions. It should never be about our power. It should be about the truth and how we can help each other to stand up. And we can get caught up in races. We can get caught up. The idea of races came from man. It did. He divided the races. He knew that he could get us at each other's throats. And in doing so, he was going to keep us really falling over each other's feet. So eventually, it's going to take us to one reference when we look at resurrection in the Old Testament. So that's where I'm going to. I'm going to the Old Testament for my original understanding of what this word should mean, resurrection. I'm not going to this ridiculous notion that the last thing they saw going out of sight was Jesus's little feet and then cloud covered him over. It's absolutely ridiculous in his thinking. He wasn't raised from the dead in that sense. He was raised to, if he was real, if Jesus was real, I tend to point at Joshua in the Old Testament to believe that there was a restored male heir. There was, just not in the capacity that they want to teach it. It was all wrongly taught. Because I did see him seated in a dream. Whether that was just foolishness or not, I can't really say at this point. I think the Spirit's going to lead me in that direction. But there is a verse that says, I will restore Judah first. I will restore the male first before the female, so that the female don't brag. That's kind of what you kind of walk away with. So yeah, we females can boast, can't we? Sure we can. But we know that the male did boast, and he's done it for thousands of years. And so when she's restored, she's going to feel like doing that, isn't she? But she's not going to be able to do it to the degree maybe that she's not supposed to, because he's restored first. He's going to be restored first. But he wasn't restored in the way that, oh, he was raised up from the dead, because this original word in Hebrew is where it began, is going to tell you what it really meant. And the Greek is going to fill it in. Yes, to some degree it is. So resurrection, you get one reference to its understanding of what resurrection meant, and it comes down to standing for the truth. That's simply what it means. So it's Strong's Hebrew 8617. It's Takuma. If I'm saying it right, I didn't look at the proper pronunciation. Sorry. It means restoration, rising, and a standing up. Noun is feminine. Power to stand. Do we have the power to stand? It's awfully hard to stand when you're yoked and yoked and yoked with this heavy weight on you, because they can't carry it. Right? It's on you to carry it. So it's the power to stand. Resistfulness. We have to continue to remain resistful or resistant to their lie, to the religious lie, regardless of the weight that we carry on our neck. This is a test, especially to us daughters. Power to stand. Resistfulness. Power to stand. Standing. Power to stand. This is all there. And it also says, by placing the term in a context of covenant discipline, Scripture underscores that the ability to stand is not merely a human capacity, but a divine gift withheld when the covenant is despised. So we apparently, from that, if we want to take everything into account, there came a time, and we can see it being heralded by the women in Christianity today, they actually began to despise their own covenant, that of them being saw equal under the covenant. That's right. With them in control of the host, and the law was to come off of their tongue. It was. And we know women are different. The women were very different. And we know when we studied wisdom, she was not for their turn. She wasn't. The daughter who was in charge to give this law was not for the men's turn to turn on this covenant. And she fought against them, and the men hated her for it. And so when the covenant is despised, you're going to be placed in a pretty bad situation, just like the women have been, because they came to despise their own covenant. And if that isn't the banner, the shameful banner of the harlot waving today in the land, all these Jezebels in the churches waving and building Baal-Zebub up, Satan up, another name for your husband, bridegroom, Lord, master, the first accuser, Adam, who accused her. That's right. He knew what he was doing. He knew to accuse. He had to have taken of the tree of good and evil. And he knew what that accusation was going to get him. It was going to get him the host out of her womb and flipped over to worship him. That's what he saw. That's what he saw. So these women, by placing the term in a context of covenant discipline, scripture underscores that the ability to stand is not merely a human capacity, but a divine gift that is withheld from you. You who refuse to open your ears and your eyes and listen to the truth and reason with wisdom. She says, when I called, you couldn't be bothered to listen to me. I'll laugh at you in the day of your calamity when it all comes down on your head and you've got those yokes on you so heavy because you couldn't stand and guard over your own house. Your own house. You're too busy guarding hubby's house and building him up. You tore your own down, didn't you, girls? And you're still trying to do it yet today and don't know what you're doing. But a divine gift withheld when the covenant is despised, and it is the harlot that is despising the covenant, along with Beelzebub, those men who loves to be exalted like their God. They'll raise their hands up to heaven and practically kiss their own armpit. I mean, that's how dumb they are. There's no wisdom in them. And God says, have nothing to do with this kind. They despise the power. And the power is identified as the women who are the creators of the kingdom. Oh, no, she travails and bleeds because, hey, that's what she's made for, me. No, I'm not. Which takes us back to what Nimrod decided he was going to do. He was going to confound her speech. And guess what it leads to? The one reference that we find it in is here. Leviticus 26:37. And you know what? I didn't write down the Greek. I wrote down the number. I may have to leave my camera a minute to go find the word. So it'll be a rough ride there for a few minutes. So Leviticus 26:37, what does it say? They will stumble over one another as though fleeing from the sword, even though no one is pursuing them. So you will not be able to stand before your enemies. The stand here, that means resurrection. You get it? The Strong's Greek's going to further this. It's going to bring us to a better understanding when we go into the Greek. So I didn't write it down, darn. See, I got cut on time there. But this is all allegorical to what's happened to the women when they began to divide, when King Solomon began to divide the kingdom, which was to divide it into the key of Solomon and key of daughters, key of David. So they will stumble over one another as though fleeing from the sword. And they were fleeing from his word. They were stumbling over each other. Well, they couldn't rightly understand it. They had been confused. They were babbling in their speech. They had no understanding how to rightly divide the word of God. And so I believe it is pointing to the women here. They will stumble over one another as though fleeing from the sword, even though no one is pursuing them. So you will not be able to stand before your enemies. That's why it's the word resurrection. Power to stand. We became powerless because you know what the enemy did? He yoked and yoked and yoked us with a weight so heavy that he couldn't carry it himself and weighed us down and then calls himself superior for it. Let's yoke you down. Let's see what you look like all yoked up. You won't look so powerful, will you, when you're wearing all these laws on your neck? And that's what it's saying. That's why he looks powerful. He built himself up with thick clay. That's what it says. And it means his own law system. That's how he did it. So now we're going to go to the Strong's Greek. Hopefully it doesn't mess with my camera. Sorry. I will look for it here. It is, should be one of the ones here on the end. No, that's stasis. That's a good one. Okay, we're going to go to 2 words, actually. So this is the one. Okay, so hopefully it don't mess with my camera. Okay, so my camera should still be going. Oh, not responding. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a few minutes to ensure that my camera is actually still working. Is it? I don't think it shut it off. Okay, it didn't. So hopefully it's moving forward. So the word in Strong's Greek is 386. And this became very fascinating to study because I broke it down. Anastasis, Anastasis. So from that word, I saw stasis. We're in a stasis, right? That's what I saw. And so I pulled that word up. So we're going to look at that one too. So resurrection in Greek is 386. Again, it's a noun feminine. They're feminine nouns in both Old and New. So it means raised to life again, resurrection, rise from the dead. That should rise, rising again, a standing up. Literally, a resurrection from death. Yes, but what did the death mean that we fell into a death? It was a sleep as well. It's called a sleep as well, that we went to sleep in the lie when we got drunk on the wine that covered over her pathways, right? She says, you didn't see my pathways when the waters came in, covered them over. And the waters are identified as the Red Sea that covered over her pathways, identified as the presence of God on earth, Mahanaim. They're seen with the Shulamite as well. It's also the angel that Jacob wrestles with and usurps authority over her authority and supplants her and her name and takes her name and says, I'm Israel. No, he's not. And he never had a right to write the law. He was to enforce her law, and he agreed to her covenant, and then he turned on her and stabbed her in the back, is what he did. And we see that play out. We've seen it. We've studied it. That's what all these videos is about. It's a slow climb to the top of Mount Sierra, really. Sierra means devil, male, he goat. And what he did is he actually cast her off of her own mountain. And yet we know that after she threshes the nations, that a new capstone is placed there. And that's going to take us to this word too in a minute. Stasis when we go there. So resurrection, it means what? A resurrection from death, individual, genitive, case, or by implication. Its author, fourth. This is the one I want. Figuratively, a recovery or moral recovery of spiritual truth. That's what resurrection means. This was what was promised in the Old Testament. It wasn't, oh, we're all going to be raised. Well, we are going to be raised to newness of life, just not the way that they told you and showed you like little cartoonists. Look, Jesus floated up out of sight in the clouds, hid him. Yeah, the nations hid him. Yeah, the nations hid that lie. They did. They for sure hid the lie. But a recovery or moral recovery of spiritual truth. And that's what's going to cause her to stand and take the yokes off of her neck, which is also going to take us to half of this word here. So 386 means resurrection. But when we go to part of this word, stasis, so this is anastasis, which means resurrection. When we go to stasis, which is Strong's Greek 4714, guess what that means? That means insurrection. When she finally wakes up, it says, when this Lord awakens from the wine that she's been drunk on, she will awaken like a warrior that's been drunk on wine. She's angry. And so this resurrection and a recovery of moral and spiritual truths is going to lead to the stasis, which is the insurrection, rebellion, noun feminine, standing, uproar. She's going to be angry. There's an uproar that's coming because of Satan, the accuser, Baalzebub. Zebub means flies. Baal is another name for your husband. It's also an Old Testament god that means Lord of Dung, which is where you're going to get the black flies from. Zebub, flying around the pile of dung. Himself as God and creator and maker, and she bleeds and suffers and many times dies to bring forth the creation. Generation after generation after generation. Without us, there is no creation. And that's what Nebuchadnezzar was guilty of, putting his arms out, because look at all that I have made all by myself for my majesty. That's what he did. He created a kingdom where he got himself worshipped. That's what he did. And he denied the power, which is also what the Christians are doing. This is how I know that the Christians aren't the holy people. I absolutely know Islamists are not the holy people. The holy people are the ones who will come to the truth, who will open their ears, open their eyes. It's going to be the daughters first. It's going to appeal to us first. Absolutely, it's going to appeal. Equality under God's law? What's not to be appealing about that to me? What? You think I want you as my head? No, I never asked for you as my head. You just thought, hey, if I can put her in that situation, I can be like the Most High. But guess what it says about him who thinks he's going to be like the Most High? That's found in Isaiah 14. Yet you are nothing more than a man. Who is this that has weakened the nations? You are nothing more than a mortal man. Yet you have become weak like one of us. Yep. You accuser, Adam, Satan, who accused her. That's who you accused. Now, this word in stasis, right here. Yeah. Sorry if it's messing with my camera. I'll give it a minute to settle there. So we get rebellion, insurrection, dissension, a standing. Yeah. The guys are going, look at the women rebellion, no, they're wicked. No, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to stand up. We're supposed to finally recover the real truth, not your lies that put you in positions of power and authority over me that you were never supposed to be in. That doesn't come from a loving God. That comes from a hateful male. That's where that comes from. Don't like it, but it's the truth. Properly, the act of standing. By analogy, position, existence. You finally have come into existence. The female is finally being born. She's becoming. You get it? She's the daughter that's caught up to her mother's throne. She is caught up to her mother's throne. These daughters, by implication, a popular uprising. Figuratively, get this one, it's a controversy. It's a controversy between who? Well, the harlot, number one, those harlots in the church, the Jezebels with their Baals building him up as if he's God and king, right? He's not. God says you didn't want me, you wanted a king. So it's not God and king. Sorry, wrong. Using it all wrong. So the controversy is against the harlot. A man builds up, and the righteous daughter that man tore down, which takes us back and follows us through what Nimrod did, what King Solomon did, what Sennacherib did, and what Nebuchadnezzar did. And why Nebuchadnezzar became a beast and had the kingdom ripped away from him for 7 years. Remember, men in this kingdom have become a beast to think themselves as gods and rulers over all of us and put a yoke on our neck. They really have become a beast. And that got carried over from the first system that the Jewish males, Judah, had created. And then that fed out to Christianity, which may well be the second beast that was taken into consideration, because even under Christianity, for the last 2,000 years, women have been yoked under men and their laws. So the mystery of lawlessness was him, the anti-Christ, the anti-anointed one. He was not the anointed one. He is not the sovereign. She was the anointed one. She was the sovereign. And she was to give the law of wisdom, her mother. And that was rejected by the first man who said he would take it in covenant. And he stabs her in the back. Yet she says, "Yet I am no man. I will present the case and set it in order." And she does that as wisdom's daughter. So, all right, so where was we going? So the controversy is about this. She says, "You divided my pleasant land." Well, who divided it? Well, we found in King Solomon, we found this division happening. The division of key of David, which these are women. The keys are women, all women. Key of David against the key of Solomon, or the key of Solomon against the key of David. And we saw what Solomon was doing. He was putting in place his own key. And it was begun by Nimrod, followed King Solomon, Sennacherib, Nebuchadnezzar. King Solomon, they want to tell us, was from Judah. He was king of Judah. Was he? Was he really? He looks more like a Babylonian to me. Just like all of these religions look. They look like Babylonian religions that's got men worshipped and women debased, playing a harlot. But hey, girls, wave that banner, and guess what? Mother's never going to see you. Wisdom will never see you, and neither will Father. Father's strong. Strong. He's strong. He knows what a strong mother is. He's not afraid of her, and she's not afraid of him. She creates life. She fills the heavens, and as such, she has a right to write the law that governs them, and she does so. And it is enforced by Father, and it's enforced by the Son, and it's enforced by the daughter. So we get that controversy. And when you look up the adversary, it is an idea of the harlot against the righteous daughters. All right. Men wants, it's us men. We're going to put those women in. No, 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 no. It was never your job to do any of that. You crossed a line there. You crossed a line, and you're going to be judged for it. So let's look why this word I picked up in this right here. It took me to an Old Testament passage, and there's no way around the connection because uproar can also mean to shout, right? So in this word stasis, rebellion, insurrection, dissension, standing, it's 4714 again, noun feminine, dissension, insurrection, standing, uproar. So when I saw the word uproar, I thought immediately of the verse that you find in, let me see, can I find it? I hope that didn't mess with my camera. Now, why didn't I take that back? So it took me to Zechariah 4:7. Here we go again. Let's see. It's going to keep working. Go back one. There we go. Okay. Check my camera again. So, is it moving? It's not stopped yet. Come on. Come on, work. I'm assuming the camera is not moving at this point. All right. Again, I am assuming my camera is not moving at this point. Is the verse. Come on. It's found in Zechariah 4:7. What are you mighty mountains before Zerubbabel? Babel. We knew what zero. We're going to do a more in depth on that one too. Zerubbabel means foreigner in Babylon. So what are you mighty mountain before the foreigner in Babylon? Before the foreigner in Babylon, you will become level ground. Then she will bring out the capstone. Capstone here is feminine. To shouts of God, bless it. To shouts. That's your uproar. God bless it. You see what's going on there? Now we get the understanding that that same mountain or capstone, as it's called here, that smashes the toes and feet on that gold idol. And Daniel, too, as built by Nebuchadnezzar from all of that gold, probably that was forwarded from King Solomon's buildup, and the gold that he got 666 talents, which is 49,000 what 950 pounds of gold in 1 year. He did that many years. He got that tribute coming to him. But that stone that smashes that becomes this great capstone here. Zion becomes a mountain, right? They took her rightful sphere of authority from her. This was her allotment. This was her birthright. She was the sovereign over it. And he, out of pride, denied it. He, out of greed, denied it and rejected it. Now, did that move? See, I have no way of knowing if the video is actually moving because it does this anyway. It's moving here. It's moving for me. But then when I play it, it just hitches. It keeps hitching. So, okay, now I'm going to re-say, if it happens to have recorded it, I'm going to re-say what I said. Okay? So Zechariah 4:7, forgive me if it actually recorded this. All right? I don't know that it did. What are you, mighty mountain? Before Zerubbabel, Babel. Foreigner in Babylon. She who is foreigners in Babylon, they're not beguiled. They do not have the beguile of what the harlot's got on her tongue, which is lifting man up as God. She was never supposed to do that. She's playing his harlot when she does that. She is the harlot in Babylon, who is the adversary against women like this Zerubbabel. They are foreigners in Babylon. They are not holding the guile of the harlot on their tongue. And we know that that passage absolutely does so take us back to the women, because it says, look not upon me, because the false light has made me dark, besmirched me. Go look the words up in the New Testament of the 144,000, not defiled. They are not besmirched by the lie of Babylon, the harlot spirit that bows to man as if he's Lord and God. You denied your creator, the one that formed you. In the days of your youth, it's time to come back to your mother, it says. So what are you, mighty mountains? Before the foreigners in Babylon, you will become level ground. Then she will bring out the capstone, that's Mount Zion, to shouts of God bless it, God bless it. Capstone here is feminine. It is not masculine. It's feminine. Your capstone is feminine. And she goes straight back down to the original foundation that was denied. So that's in Zechariah 4:7. So we know that the insurrection spoken of here in the New Testament, which is feminine, insurrection, rebellion, noun, uproar, takes us to these shouts, which is also an uproar. Then she will bring out the capstones to shout of God bless it. God bless it. Right? Um, so there we go. That's our video today. And I'm sorry about the end time stalling there. I just felt it was important enough to put it in play. So I'm going to call it good. I thank you all for being here, and I hope you're all blessed with a lovely day. I hope above everything else that you're blessed with the truth and that you're willing to hear, that you have a willing heart to hear, to see. Um, if you don't want to see, you don't want to hear, and you keep babbling your foolishness, that's a choice that you've made. You've clearly made that choice. You've decided, I'm not hearing, I'm not listening, and you were warned. You were warned that that's exactly what was going to happen, and you're fulfilling your own prophecies. You are. You're fulfilling them. But again, that's how I knew that the saints certainly aren't the holy people. The Islamists who absolutely hates women, proof Sharia law, these nations over here that was originally founded upon supposed Christianity, wrote laws that subjugated women and told women that they had no rights. We saw that happening for many, many years. The only way women did get any rights is because they had to stand and fight for them, and they did fight for them. And so you see jerks trying to put that in play again. You see them with different rulers here in Canada removing all funding from the women's sector where abused women or domestic violence happens. They have pulled off funding away from them. They leave it alive in other areas to keep bringing them forward, but to try to keep the women down. We've been weighed down. We're used to this, boys. We're used to this. Um, but you know what? You're not going to stop it this time. You think you are. You think you're going to go around again, do you? Well, you're not. You're done. We broke through your lies. And so it says the one that gets caught up to the throne, it's these righteous daughters. It's the birth of the daughter, right? Standing is your birth. Standing is your newness of life. That is your resurrection. We're proof that we will, right? In the next. That's the promise. And why you get this idea also when we went back to Nebuchadnezzar and he says, look at all that I have made. And we know that it began with Nimrod, right? So there's a reason why they believe in reincarnation and why they're repeating the same things that this one did or this one did, right? We looked into that, but there's so much to look into, so much to discuss. I couldn't get over the 4-part steps that these men so obviously in the same family lines. There's a family line there. They're flowing through with this understanding. At some point, that family line did get broken. They forgot. They forgot what they'd begun. And they forgot what they were teaching. They forgot what it was all about, right? And that line broke. It broke somewhere along the line. But the first 4, they carried a lineage through Nimrod, King Solomon, Sennacherib, Nebuchadnezzar. They were all related. They all came from relations that knew the line, knew what they were doing. They had to. They had to. So this is the same family, these same families that's ruling at the top. And I even watched an interview of a woman. I posted her interview. She said, no, they don't know. They don't know what Baal worship is about. Well, indications is that they probably didn't know at some point. They lost sight of that. But that they're not going to achieve what they think they're going to achieve. We were set into a lower orbit for judgment, for a purpose. And the purpose was that there would be no more allotments gave to us. If we don't find a way through to take care of this planet will be destroyed. Absolutely destroyed, because there is no more allotments coming to you, especially with the denial of the truth. There are no more allotments gave to you. So you better learn to work together. You better learn to take care of this earth, because there's none others going to be gave to you. There's no more allotments, right? And she is the one that gives life to us. Without her, we have nothing. Um, So there you go. Again, that's the video. So thanks for watching. Again, I hope you're all blessed with the truth. And I hope you all have a lovely day.